Hello, Animation Fanatic here. I finally was able to watch the recent episode of Total Drama All-Stars. I'm sorry it's taken me so long. I've had a really busy, really hectic week. But finally, I've managed to see it this morning, and wow, what a... I can't honestly say I've been surprised a ton by these episodes, by the show. In the first season, I was surprised a few times. After that, less so. I was less surprised. Sometimes, occasionally. But this episode really did shock me. It threw a few strange turns at me that I didn't think were going to come, and I honestly say it made the episode really good. The first part of the episode I thought was a bit slow, although it had some interesting things, but it just got funnier and better and more entertaining as it continued to develop. And that's what makes this episode great, and that's what's making this show so great. We're only 4 episodes in, I know, but I'm really impressed with how well it's been going so far, and I'm really excited to see the rest of it. I'm also a little bit shocked that they're eliminating people each episode, which lends credence to the theory that they might bring in an all-new cast late halfway through the show, seeing as the pace that they're eliminating people is. Or maybe they'll bring in some old contestants, I don't know. But anyway, let's dive into some of the basic plot of this episode and see what makes it so good. So basically, the heroes are riding pretty high after their victory last week, and they're trying to greet Duncan and make him and accept him. Duncan's constant theme throughout this episode is sort of a struggle between being a villain and being a hero, and doing heroic or just nice things. And that seems to be his challenge throughout this whole thing. This episode, anyway, the villains are having a harder time of it in the crappy cabins at the other part of Camp Wawanakwa, although Scott's kind of enjoying the bad food that Chef serves. This actually wasn't, I don't think, a theme in the last season, but whatever. Anyway, Scott starts to get really friendly with Courtney early on in this episode, and that continues throughout the whole thing, with Courtney reciprocating only to the extent of wanting an alliance. She's actually pretty annoyed. This this is the oddest thing about this episode, and that's saying quite a bit because later on I think we get Molotov the bear and a moose playing chess. But this thing between Scott and Courtney is honestly really weird. It comes almost out of nowhere. The only indication being the fact that she's covered with gruel and he likes gruel. But it's honestly very strange to see. And I really don't, and with the way they played it up through the entire episode, I don't think this is going to be something very brief. I think if you remember the last season, in episode 3, Dawn and Scott had this little moment that kind of went down in fan history and led to a lot of speculation and gossip about the extent of their future relationship. But that, I think, was just the writers kind of yanking our chain. I've seen this on other shows. I can't remember exactly, but I've seen this in other shows. They hint at something. They make sure we're still paying attention. They make sure we're going to come back. They make sure we're not falling asleep on the couch or, well, on the couch. Sometimes I'm sitting at the table watching this, but this isn't the same thing. I think they're really going to try to do something with this relationship, and I'm wondering what it's going to be and how far people are going to be willing to go. Anyway, back to the main plot of the story. Early on, also, we see Mike's evil personality come in and out throughout this episode. He destroys Sierra's, I guess it's her phone or her BlackBerry or something, whatever she uses to connect to the outside world. I find this a little odd. Is his goal just to go around destroying people's things? That seems almost the equivalent of in Superman 3, Superman rights the Leaning Tower of Pisa. That's not very impressive. That's annoying, potentially devastating to someone with Sierra's lack of mental capacity, but I don't know what he's trying to do here. Later on, he sabotages, well, not really sabotages, he just pulls a lever on one of the machines that they use during their competition, which makes it kind of go nuts. Although only for Courtney, afterwards it kind of normalizes. So, whatever. Anyway, we lead into the challenge, which is basically a mixture of an eating contest and a challenge from the previous and the obstacle course from the previous season, with several of the same obstacles, as well as a new addition, which is pretty much an amusement park ride. You know the one where you are in that sphere and you hold on and it spins around and around and you're standing upright? That's basically it, without the things to hold. So it sounds interesting. Sounds good enough. They've got to basically eat, go through the obstacle course, and hold it all in without letting it all out and messing up everything. So, and they've also got to go through all the people. What do I? So yeah, that's basically a lot of what's happening. It's a lot of the episode is just back and forth with them trying to get to it. It leads to a lot of funny physical jokes. I know this show's a little too obsessed with barf humor, but it's played decently well here, and every moment from not immediately when they start, but after it starts to get going, it starts to be really funny, because initially it's not so funny, but it starts to get really hilarious. Um, like I said, there's a lot in here about Duncan being a good guy. He starts trying to be a team player, trying to be nice to other people. It's sort of a transition for him. Courtney's a little less villainous in this one. Sort of, she's she's not so bad. She's less of a jerk in this. Gwen's the focus kind of shifts away from Gwen in this episode, unlike the previous one. There is a moment with her in the confessional booth saying she only came here to make it up with Courtney actually listening outside, but Courtney doesn't buy it and also thinks Gwen's gonna try to sabotage her throughout the competition. Gwen still tries to put on a positive front, even saying that if she wins the competition, that Courtney will like her again. But still, that doesn't really work, although they find out later that Gwen isn't the one who sabotaged the weird machine. Um, anyway, the competition goes through all of its things. There's hijinks, there's hilarity. It's funny. I don't want to spoil all the jokes for you, but it's pretty hilarious the way they do everything. It's fun to see Cameron use his math and reading skills and all the other things that he does, his knowledge to actually compete in the challenges. The only thing is it kind of backfires on him. He does the calculation too fast, and then he ends up jumping in the mud. Yeah. So, like I said, physical jokes. There's a lot of great ones in here. This is what this series is kind of built on, and it's great here too. Um, Anyway, they get through the competition, and it boils down to Sam and Alejandro. Now, Sam, I believe, had already gone, and it was supposed to be Zoe versus Heather, which should have been interesting. Um, and I really don't know why they let Sam go in and do that, because Zoe would have been a lot better. She's still got a lot of her skills that she discovered in the last season, and she's been a pretty big help throughout this. And Mike's been fairly competent too. But anyway, it boils down to Sam and Alejandro, who got tagged back into the running, and they go through their whole thing. And it looks like Sam's game abilities have also driven him to succeed, and it looks like he's won, despite the it looks like he's won. So Chris brings them all out to do their whole villain elimination thing and whatever, and clears up that thing about Gwen. And you think it's going to be just your typical elimination. You go, okay, so the villains are just going to lose every episode now. Well, back to the old formula. Turns out not. Okay, I'm going to warn you one more. I'm going to warn you one more time before I continue with this. These are spoiler reviews. Well, turns out Sam didn't eat all of his pancake for some reason, and for some reason he kept the. Well, we find out later. He kept some of the pancake in his pockets. He says in case he had to go back to Boney Island so he could eat something. I think he did kind of want to cheat a little bit, so we're never told. So then the heroes have to be the ones who eliminate somebody, and they eliminate Sam. I was kind of hoping they'd eliminate Sierra, because she is getting a little bit too annoying again, but, whatever. So Sam got the boot, the villains won, and we're left to see how people continue to develop in the rest of the series. They've laid a lot of new groundwork here, and a lot of more interesting things are going to happen, I believe. Yeah, it's interesting that Sam would do that. There doesn't seem to be too many harsh feelings between him and his friends, just sort of disappointment, I guess you could say. So overall, how was the episode? Very good. I enjoyed it. It had decent pacing at the beginning and very good pacing after in the second half. It was a little slow to get started, but it had a good storyline. It was funny. Not everything made sense, but I'm sure it will make sense later. And yeah, it was a very entertaining episode. I hope to see more, and I haven't been disappointed by any episodes so far. I haven't been mad about anything. I know some people are screaming over the third episode, but I've enjoyed each one as it's come, and I look forward to it. I even look forward to the talk show format that they've done in previous seasons. I hope they do it in this one as well, and I can't wait to see that, honestly. It'll be fun to see the people who weren't brought back from the old and new cast shown in this show, and I'm very excited. Okay, so here's hoping to further good episodes and that they bring back old characters maybe or new ones.